Taylor had always been the black sheep of the Whitaker family, the one who fled the manicured suburbs of Portland, Oregon, for the chaotic embrace of Spain 12 years ago. At 35, she was a painter whose canvases, bold strokes of crimson and indigo capturing the feverish pulse of flamenco dancers and shadowed cathedrals, hung in dusty galleries from Madrid to Malaga. Her life was a deliberate solitude, a cramped casita in the Triana neighborhood of Seville, where the Guadalquivir River whispered secrets at night, and mornings began with black coffee and the sting of regret. She hadn't spoken to her sister Emily in years, not since that blistering argument over the phone when Emily, ever the golden child, had begged Taylor to come home for Christmas. "You're wasting your life chasing rainbows in Europe," Emily had said, her voice laced with that Midwestern practicality Taylor despised. Taylor had hung up, the line dead like their bond. Now Emily was gone. A car accident on a rain-slicked interstate outside Seattle. Ironic, Taylor thought bitterly, how the Pacific Northwest's relentless drizzle had finally claimed her. The lawyer's call had come like a thunderclap. Emily's will name Taylor as Faith's guardian. Faith, the 18-year-old niece Taylor had only met twice, at awkward family reunions where the girl had hovered like a shadow, all gangly limbs and shy smiles. "She's your blood," the lawyer droned. As if that meant anything in a world where Taylor had spent her adulthood painting out the stains of her own fractured heart. Faith had arrived unannounced 2 days ago, stepping off a budget flight from Seattle with nothing but a duffel bag and eyes red from crying. The apartment, Emily's pied-à-terre in Seville, a wedding gift from her ex-husband that she'd kept as a summer escape, smelled of stale lavender and abandonment. Taylor had inherited it too, a crumbling relic of her sister's ill-fated marriage to a tech bro who'd bolted when Faith was 10. Faith had stood in the doorway, dripping from a sudden downpour, her chestnut hair plastered to her face like a drowned Ophelia. "Aunt Taylor," she'd whispered, voice cracking like thin ice. "Mom said. She said you'd help." Taylor's response had been a wall of silence at first, then a curt tour of the fridge stocked with olives and cheap wine. By evening, the truth spilled out in halting bursts. Faith's father, Richard, had washed his hands of her after Emily's death. "He said college was my problem now," Faith murmured, picking at a loose thread on her hoodie. "Grandma's in a nursing home. You're it." The words landed like punches. Taylor, who prided herself on her independence, felt the old wounds reopen, the ones from her own coming out at 22, when her parents had whispered phase and Emily had hugged her tight but never called again. She poured another glass of Rioja, the wine burning like accusation. How could she raise a kid? She could barely raise herself some days, haunted by the ghost of Lena, her ex of 7 years, who'd left her for a gallery owner in Barcelona with a parting shot. "You're too broken to love anyone, Taylor. Not even yourself." That night, as Faith slept on the lumpy sofa, Taylor paced the tiled balcony overlooking the river. The city thrummed with life, guitar strings plucking sorrow from the air, laughter spilling from tapas bars, but inside doubt coiled like smoke. By morning, resolve hardened. She couldn't do this. Not to Faith, not to herself. "Listen," Taylor said over breakfast, shoving a train ticket across the table. It was for Madrid, where Emily's old college friend lived. "This isn't my life. You're 18, adult enough to figure it out. Take the ticket, crash with Marta. She'll sort you." Faith's fork clattered against the plate, her face draining of color. "But Mom promised." "Your mom isn't here," Taylor snapped, sharper than she intended. "And neither am I, not for this." The argument escalated in whispers at first, then shouts that echoed off the whitewashed walls. Faith's pleas turned to accusations. "You think you're so free running off to Spain like some tortured artist? Mom said you were selfish, always putting your stupid paintings first." Taylor fired back, dredging up Emily's failures, the divorce, the endless work trips that left Faith latchkey. It ended with the door slam, Faith vanishing into the storm, her backpack slung over one shoulder like a shield. Guilt hit Taylor like a hangover, worse than any she'd nursed. She spent the day in her makeshift studio, a corner of the living room cluttered with easels and turpentine fumes, slashing ochre across canvas until it bled. By dusk, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets steaming. She wandered Triana's alleys, the scent of churros and jasmine pulling her toward the river. That's when she saw her. Not Faith, no, it was Sophia, the barista from the corner cafe, the one with olive skin and a laugh like breaking waves. Sophia was 28. A local with a degree in literature, she used to scribble poetry on napkins, her dark curls tied back with a scarf that fluttered like a flag of defiance. They'd flirted idly for months, Taylor's dry wit against Sophia's playful jabs, but never more. Tonight, Sophia leaned against the bridge railing, cigarette glowing like a tiny sun, her eyes scanning the horizon. "Lost your muse?" Sophia asked, exhaling smoke that curled toward the stars. Taylor leaned beside her, the iron cool under her palms. "Lost more than that. My niece just showed up and I told her to leave." Sophia's brow arched, but there was no judgment, only that steady gaze that made Taylor feel seen. "Family's a messy canvas, no? Mine disowned me when I told them about Elena." She stubbed out the cigarette, her voice softening. "You regret it yet?" The question hung there, heavier than the humid air. Taylor thought of Faith's eyes, so like Emily's, pleading, unbroken. "Yeah," she admitted, the word tasting like ash. "God, yeah." They talked until the bars emptied, Sophia's stories of Seville's underground poetry slams weaving through Taylor's confessions. For the first time in years, Taylor felt the ice around her heart crack. Sophia's hand brushed hers on the railing, a spark that lingered. But as dawn pinked the sky, Taylor's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I'm at the cathedral. Don't know where else to go. Faith." Panic surged. Taylor bolted, hailing a cab through waking streets lined with shuttered windows and stray cats. The Seville Cathedral loomed like a stone giant, its spires piercing the mist. Faith sat on the steps, knees drawn up, her backpack a pitiful fortress. She looked smaller, fragility etched in the hunch of her shoulders. "I couldn't go to Madrid," Faith whispered when Taylor knelt beside her. "Dad. He said if I came here, he'd cut me off for good. And the thing is..." She trailed off, glancing around as if the gargoyles might eavesdrop. Taylor's chest tightened. "What?" "Faith talked to me." But Faith shook her head, tears carving tracks through the grime on her cheeks. "Not yet. Just, don't make me leave again." In that moment, under the watchful eyes of saints carved in limestone, Taylor pulled her into a hug, the first real one since childhood. Faith's body shook against hers, a dam breaking. Taylor didn't know what secret Faith guarded, but she knew the weight of hiding one. "Okay," she murmured into damp hair. "Okay, kid. You're staying." The days blurred into a fragile routine. Faith enrolled online in community college courses, art history, because Emily had always said she had an eye, while Taylor scraped together commissions to cover rent. The casita, once a solitary cave, filled with tentative life. Faith's playlists of indie folk drifting from her phone, Taylor teaching her to mix paints without cursing the ratios. Evenings they wandered the Alcazar Gardens, where peacocks strutted amid fountains and Faith's laughter, rare at first, began to echo Taylor's own. Sophia became a fixture too, dropping by with paella from her abuela's recipe and stories of her breakup with Elena, who'd moved to Granada chasing a flamenco troupe. "Love's like bullfighting," Sophia said one night over sangria on the balcony. "You charge in, horns blazing, but one wrong step." She trailed off, her dark eyes locking on Taylor's. Faith watched from the shadows, a quiet smile playing on her lips, as if seeing her aunt anew. But cracks formed. Faith withdrew on the weekends, claiming study sessions that stretched into nights. Taylor noticed the bruises, not fresh, but faded yellows on her wrists, like fingerprints from a ghost. What happened in Seattle? Taylor pressed one afternoon, as they kneaded dough for tortilla española in the tiny kitchen. Faith's knife paused mid-chop. "Dad found my journal. The one where I wrote about girls." The words tumbled out then, a flood. The crushes hidden in locker notes. The sleepover that ended in a stolen kiss and shame. Richard's rage when he discovered it. "He said I was confused, that Mom's death was punishment. He kicked me out before the funeral even." Taylor's hand stilled, flour dusting her knuckles like snow. Lesbian. The word hung unspoken, but it bound them. Taylor's own history flashing in technicolor. The high school girlfriend who vanished after graduation. The parade in Portland where she'd marched alone. "You're not confused," Taylor said fiercely, pulling Faith into a flowery embrace. "You're brave. And you're safe here." Faith's sob was muffled against her shoulder. "I thought you'd hate me. Like everyone else." Never, Taylor vowed, her voice thick. And in that vow something shifted. A bridge built from shared scars. Summer descended on Seville like a lover's fever. The air thick with the scent of orange blossoms and the distant sizzle of street vendors frying churros. Taylor's studio expanded, canvases leaning against walls like sentinels and faith sketches. Delicate lines of river bends and shadowed faces joined them. The girl had talent, raw and unpolished like Taylor at her age. "You've got Emily's fire," Taylor told her one sweltering afternoon, as they hauled supplies from the market, baskets brimming with figs and manchego. Faith blushed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "And your stubbornness," she always said. Their bond deepened in quiet ways. Late-night confessions over Heladu de Turin, Faith admitting her first crush was on a soccer teammate named Riley, Taylor sharing tales of Lena's betrayal. The way she'd found the gallery invite tucked in Lena's suitcase. A one-way ticket to a life without her. "It wasn't the leaving," Taylor mused, staring at the moonlit river from their balcony. "It was realizing I'd let her define me." Sophia wove in seamlessly, her presence a balm. She and Taylor fell into an easy rhythm. Stolen kisses in the kitchen while Faith pretended to study. Walks along the river where Sophia recited Lorca poems, her voice husky with Andalusian lilt. "Your eyes are like green almonds," Sophia whispered one evening, tracing Taylor's jaw in the gloaming. Taylor laughed, pulling her close, the world narrowing to the salt of Sophia's skin and the promise of something real. Faith watched it all with a mix of envy and joy, her own heart stirring. It started at the poetry slam in a basement bar off Calle Batiste, a dimly lit den where artists and misfits gathered under strings of Edison bulbs. Sophia dragged them there, insisting Faith read her latest piece, a haunting verse about waves crashing against hidden shores. The crowd, tattooed poets and guitar-strumming dreamers, erupted in snaps, but Faith's eyes locked on one face. Maria, a 20-year-old local with sun-kissed skin, cropped black hair that curled at the nape, and eyes like polished obsidian. Maria approached after, her smile shy under the weight of admiration. "That was like you pulled the Guadalquivir's soul right out." She was a student at the university, studying environmental science, with hands callous from volunteering at urban gardens. Faith stammered a thanks, her cheeks flaming, but Maria slipped her a napkin-scribbled number. "Call if you want to plant more than words." The calls turned to coffee dates at hidden plazas, where fountains bubbled like secrets. Maria was everything Faith hadn't dared dream. Unapologetic in her queerness, out since 16, with stories of pride marches in Madrid and family barbecues where her mothers held hands openly. "Love isn't a storm to weather," Maria said one afternoon, their fingers interlacing under a jacaranda tree's purple cascade. "It's the shade after." Faith kissed her there, tentative at first, then fierce, the world blooming in technicolor. Taylor saw the change, the glow in Faith's step, the doodles of intertwined vines in her sketchbook. "Who's the girl?" she teased over dinner, Sophia smirking beside her as she passed the gazpacho. Faith's grin was luminous. "Maria. She's incredible." She spilled details, the rooftop picnics with stolen wine, the way Maria's laugh chased shadows from Faith's doubts. Taylor listened, heart swelling with a pride she'd never known, even as echoes of her own youth whispered warnings. But paradise in Seville was fleeting, shadowed by the Sirocco winds that carried whispers of trouble. It began with an email from Richard, Faith's father. A curt demand for updates, laced with veiled threats about custody. "She's still a minor in my eyes," he wrote, ignoring the calendar. Taylor deleted it, but unease festered. Then came the betrayal, sharp as a stiletto. Taylor had a showing at a small gallery in the Barrio Santa Cruz, her series on exile's echo, paintings of fractured mirrors reflecting civilian facades. Sophia helped hang the pieces, her touch lingering on Taylor's waist amid the scent of fresh varnish. Faith came too, Maria on her arm, the four of them a makeshift family toasting with cava as critics murmured approval. Lena appeared like a specter at midnight, gliding through the crowd in a silk dress that hugged her like regret. 40 now, but ageless with her blonde bob and cool blue eyes, she was the gallery owner's partner, the same one who'd lured her away. "Taylor," she purred, champagne flute in hand, "these are exquisite. Still painting your pain, I see." The air thickened. Taylor's smile was a mask, cracking at the edges. "Lena, fancy seeing you curate my heartbreak." They talked civil at first, old rhythms resurfacing like muscle memory. Lena apologized in that polished way of hers. I was scared. You were so intense. But her eyes flicked to Sophia, appraising, and later, when Taylor stepped out for air, she overheard the murmur to a colleague. She's the rebound. Always was. Worse came the next day. Faith burst into the casita, face ashen, phone clutched like a grenade. Dad knows about Maria. He called the university, pretended to be Mom's lawyer. They're threatening to pull my enrollment unless I come home. Taylor's blood ran cold. How? Faith's voice broke. Lena. She was at the opening, saw me with Maria, put two and two together. Emailed Dad anonymously with photos from the bar. Said I was endangering myself. Betrayal doubled, a knife twist. Lena, who'd known Taylor's history, weaponizing Faith's vulnerability for what? Spite? To reclaim some ghost of control? Taylor stormed to the gallery, but Lena was gone. Off to Barcelona again, leaving a note. Didn't mean harm. Just thought family should know their own. The fallout fractured them. Faith retreated into silence, canceling dates with Maria, her sketches turning jagged with thorns. What if he's right? She whispered one night, curled on the sofa. What if I'm just broken? Taylor knelt, cupping her face. You're not. And neither am I. But doubt not, had she brought this curse, her past bleeding into Faith's fragile world? Sophia saw it clearest, pulling Taylor aside after a tense dinner where Faith picked at her food. You're both carrying too much, she said, her hands warm on Taylor's arms. Let me in. All the way. They made love that night for the first time, slow and reverent in the candlelit bedroom. Sophia's whispers in Spanish unraveling Taylor's defenses. Te quiero, Sophia breathed against her neck. I love you, and Taylor clung to it, a lifeline in the gathering storm. Yet the storm broke fully during Feria de Abril, Seville's April fair exploding in a riot of polka-dot dresses, casetas thumping with sevillanas, and the air electric with possibility. Faith, coaxed by Maria's pleas, donned a borrowed flamenco skirt, her hair pinned with a mantilla. Taylor and Sophia followed, arms linked, the four of them weaving through lantern-lit streets alive with laughter and the clop of horses' hooves. It was perfect, until Richard arrived. He must have flown in on a red-eye. His suit rumpled, face carved with righteous fury. He cornered Faith near a fountain, Maria shrinking back as his voice rose over the music. This is what you've become? Parading with some girl. Your mother's rolling in her grave. Faith froze, the color draining from her face. Taylor pushed through the crowd, heart pounding like a war drum. Back off, Richard. She's not yours to bully. He whirled, eyes narrowing on Taylor, the sister-in-law he'd always dismissed as the dyke artist. You poisoned her. Emily would be horrified. Liar, Faith spat, stepping forward, her voice trembling but steel-edged. Mom knew. She loved me. All of me. The words ignited the powder keg. Richard lunged, not violently, but with a grab for Faith's arm, his grip bruising. Maria cried out, Sophia surged to pull him back, and Taylor placed herself between them, her body a barrier. Touch her again and I'll have you arrested. She's chosen her life. With us. The fairgoers paused, a circle forming, murmurs rippling like wind through reeds. Richard's face crumpled, not in defeat but something uglier. Defeat masked as piety. You're both damned, he hissed, but his eyes darted, the crowd's judgment a weight he couldn't bear. He backed away, vanishing into the throng, leaving only the echo of his footsteps on cobblestones. Faith collapsed against Taylor, sobs racking her frame. Maria enveloped her from the other side, Sophia's hand finding Taylor's in the chaos. It's over, Taylor murmured, though she knew it wasn't, not yet. But in that moment, under the fairy lights and the indifferent stars, they held each other. A fortress against the night. The aftermath of Feria lingered like a bruise, tender and discolored. Richard didn't return, but his shadow did, voicemails deleted unheard. Emails from lawyers probing for weaknesses in Taylor's guardianship claim. Faith threw herself into her art, canvases blooming with defiant color. Lovers entwined in gardens of impossible flowers, their faces blurred but fierce. Maria became her anchor, their romance deepening in stolen afternoons at the Metropole Parasol, where they lay on honeycomb shades overlooking the city, whispering futures amid the hum of tourists. Taylor watched Faith heal, a quiet miracle unfolding. "You're glowing," she told her one morning over café con leche, sunlight slanting through the kitchen window like benediction. Faith smiled, real and radiant. "It's you. And Maria. And this place. Mom was right about Seville. It heals what it breaks." But Taylor's own fractures widened. Lena's betrayal unearthed old shrapnel. The years spent doubting her worth, painting not from passion but penance. Sophia sensed it, her touches turning urgent, as if she could love the rot away. They argued in the casita's confines, Sophia accusing Taylor of walls built too high, Taylor retorting that trust was a luxury for the unbroken. "I let you in," Taylor shot back one evening, after Sophia found her staring at an unsent letter to Lena, words of rage half scribbled. "Isn't that enough?" Sophia's eyes flashed, hurt sharpening her features. "No, it's not. I want all of you, not just the pretty scars." She stormed out, the door clicking shut like a verdict. Faith found Taylor later, curled on the balcony with a bottle of vermouth, the river below mocking her with its ceaseless flow. "She'll come back," Faith said, settling beside her, their shoulders touching in solidarity. "But you have to meet her halfway." Taylor took a swig, the anise bitterness mirroring her mood. "What if I can't? What if I'm just like him, pushing away what matters?" Faith's hand covered hers steady. "You're not. Dad pushes because he's scared. Of love, of losing control. You? You fight because you care too much." She paused, hazel eyes searching. "Remember what you told me? About bravery? That's you, Aunt Tay. Bravest person I know." The nickname Aunt Tay. Cracked something open, tears spilling hot and unbidden. Faith held her then, roles reversed, the girl who'd arrived broken, now the mender. In the quiet, Faith shared more. Letters from Emily tucked in her backpack, yellowed pages of maternal wisdom. "She wrote about you," Faith said softly. "How she envied your fire. Said you were the one who'd show me how to burn bright." They cried together, the river carrying their grief downstream. By dawn, Taylor penned a new letter. Not to Lena but Sophia. "I'm terrified. But I'm yours if you'll have the mess." Sophia returned at noon, poem in hand, her curls wild from the wind. "Read this," she demanded, thrusting the paper forward. It was a sonnet of olive branches and stubborn roots, ending, "In your fractures I find home." They kissed on the threshold, slow and forgiving, the casita exhaling relief. Emboldened, Taylor tackled the legal knots. She hired a notary in the old quarter, a wiry man named Paco with a mustache like a broom and a penchant for sherry. "Guardianship's ironclad," he assured, puffing a cigarillo. "But the father's stirring mud. Need proof of unfitness." Taylor gathered it methodically. Emails, voicemails transcribed, even a sworn statement from Faith about the bruises, the journal's destruction. It felt like painting over rot, necessary but exposing. Faith's courage mirrored it. She and Maria went public at a university rally for LGBTQ rights, hand in hand under rainbow banners fluttering against the cathedral's shadow. Taylor and Sophia cheered from the sidelines, pride swelling like a tide. "Look at her," Sophia murmured, squeezing Taylor's hand. "You gave her wings." But conflict crested again, insidious as the summer heat. Richard escalated, filing a petition from Seattle, claiming Taylor's lifestyle endangered Faith. The court date loomed in Granada, a 2-hour train ride through olive groves and sierras, but the real battle brewed closer. Maria's family, staunch Catholics with a finca outside town, summoned her home for a talk. She returned hollow-eyed, recounting the interrogation. Questions about sin, salvation, the phase they'd cure with prayer. Faith rallied, storming the finca with Taylor in tow, a bold incursion up a dusty road lined with cork oaks. The confrontation unfolded in a sun-baked courtyard, much like the one Taylor would later immortalize in memory. Maria's mothers rigid in their chairs, Richard inexplicably there via video call on a tablet, his face a pixelated snarl. "This is interference," he barked, but Faith cut him off. "No. This is family." She stood tall, Maria beside her, voices intertwining in a tapestry of truth. The love that healed, not harmed. The identities they claimed against odds. Taylor spoke last, her artist's voice steady. "I refused her once out of fear. But love isn't refusal. It's showing up, every damn time." The mothers wavered, tears glistening. Maria's abuela, a quiet force nodding first. Enough old wars, she said in halting English. Richard's screen went black mid-rant, his defeat silent. Victory tasted bittersweet, a gazpacho spiced with relief. Back in Seville, Faith and Maria danced in the living room to a scratchy vinyl of Rosalia. Their joy infectious. Taylor pulled Sophia onto the floor, bodies swaying in the lamplight, whispers of forever exchanged over the music's pulse. Yet drama's undercurrent pulled. Taylor's next showing, a joint exhibit with Faith's emerging works, drew Lena back uninvited. She cornered Taylor in the gallery's alcove, champagne flute trembling. I was wrong, Lena said, voice small. About everything. Seeing you with her. It gutted me. Taylor's heart stuttered, old flames flickering, but Sophia's laugh from across the room anchored her. You were my teacher, Taylor replied evenly. But I'm done learning pain. Lena left with a nod, the door closing on that chapter. As autumn cooled the air, turning leaves to gold, Taylor proposed to Sophia under the Giralda's spire. Not with rings but vows etched on canvas, intertwined figures against a civilian sky. Faith designed the frame, Maria etched a poem inside. To new beginnings, they toasted, the river reflecting their promise. But Faith's secret, the deepest layer, emerged in a whisper one crisp November eve. They sat on the balcony, shawls against the chill, stars pricking the velvet sky. There's more, Faith said, fiddling with her necklace, a locket from Emily. Mom wasn't just my mom. She had an affair. With a woman. Before Dad. Taylor froze, the world tilting. What? Faith opened the locket, revealing a tiny photo. Emily, young and laughing, arm around a stranger with auburn hair and green eyes. Taylor's breath caught, herself at 20 before Spain. You were her first love, Faith said softly. She never stopped regretting letting you go. That's why she named me Guardian. To bring us full circle. The revelation crashed like waves, grief and grace entwining. Emily's silence hadn't been rejection, it was protection. A love too vast for words. Taylor wept, Faith holding her, the pieces of their shattered mosaic reforming. Winter wrapped Seville in a merciful mildness, the Guadalquivir misting like breath on glass, holiday lights twinkling in Plaza de España's alcoves. Taylor's exhibit sold out, critics praising the tender ferocity of her and Faith's duo show. A dialogue of exile and embrace. Commissions poured in, enough to fix the casita's leaky roof and fund Faith's transfer to the local art institute. Maria moved in on weekends, her garden plot sprouting herbs on the tiny patio, turning concrete into Eden. Richard's petition crumbled in Granada's courthouse, the judge, a stern woman with silver hair and a no-nonsense gaze, dismissing it with a gavel crack. The minor thrives, she declared, nodding at Faith's portfolio of glowing testimonials. Richard didn't contest, his final email a terse withdrawal. Keep her. She's yours now. Whether defeat or indifference, it freed them. Taylor and Sophia married in a civil ceremony at the town hall, then a backyard vow renewal under jasmine arches, Faith officiating with a grin and Maria strumming guitar. You too, Faith said, voice thick, are proof that love doesn't just survive, it rebuilds. Rings exchanged, simple gold bands etched with olive leaves. Sealed it, Sophia's kiss tasting of manzanilla and home. Faith and Maria's love paralleled, a quieter symphony. They volunteered at a youth center for queer teens, Faith leading workshops on art as armor. Her sketches inspiring kids to draw their truths. One evening as snow dusted the Sierras, rare for Seville, Maria knelt in the casita's glow, a wildflower crown in hand. Marry me? She asked Faith, eyes shining. Faith's yes was a laugh, pulling her up into a dance that spilled laughter across the tiles. But humanism's truest measure came in forgiveness's forge. Taylor reached out to Lena, not for reconciliation but closure. A coffee in a neutral cafe overlooking the cathedral. Lena arrived subdued, lines etched deeper around her eyes. I was jealous, she confessed over cortados, of your fire, your refusal to dim. Taylor listened, then shared Emily's secret. The locket passed hand to hand. Lena's tears fell first, a bridge of shared sorrow. She was my friend too, Lena whispered. We all fumbled the light. They parted not lovers but survivors. Lena funding a scholarship in Emily's name for young artists. A quiet amends. Taylor painted it later. Three women under a fractured sky, hands linked, the canvas titled Refractions. As spring bloomed anew, orange trees heavy with fruit, the family gathered for Emily's delayed memorial. A picnic in the Maria Luisa Park, blankets spread under palms, guitar and stories flowing. Faith read a letter from her mother, unearthed from the locket's hidden compartment. To my girls, Taylor, keep burning. Faith, keep seeking. Love isn't hidden. It's the light you carry. They scattered petals into the fountain, watching them drift like prayers. Taylor watched Faith and Maria wander hand in hand toward the rowboats, their silhouettes against the sunset, a poem of possibility. Sophia leaned into her, breath warm on her neck. We did good, she murmured. Yeah, Taylor replied, her hand finding Sophia's, fingers lacing eternal. We did. In Seville's eternal dance, of passion and pain, betrayal and balm, they'd forged not just survival but sanctity. A family not of blood alone, but chosen fierce. And in that choice they found grace. The humanistic heart of love, unbroken, ever unfolding.